Okay, we're back again. Alright, I'm doing another design vid. I've already started up here and it's time to put the wings on. And as you can see, I'm not going for conventional wings on this one. The basic fuselage is already there, so you can see, similar to the last build video, so central turbojet and flanking rapiers. That is a cargo bay in the middle. It's been flipped over in Bombay format, but yeah, so reverse sweep wings. These are a thing that work in reality. The reason they're a thing in reality is because they have some advantages over normal swept wings. With normal swept wings, when they go into a stall, they stall from the tips in, and because the wingtips are the first bit to stall, it means at the very start of the stall you start to lose roll stability, so they tend to get a bit rolly at extreme angles of attack, whereas a reverse sweep wing stalls from the root to the tip, the other way around. So it comes with some other complications, and the main problem with them is that you need high-tech materials to make something strong enough to work in a reverse sweep, because there's a lot of stress on it. But they are a thing, and they work in Kerbal as well, thanks to, praise be to Ferrum, rep be upon him. So, hold on a moment there. Oh, come on. Yep, oh, there we go. Sorry, my video just glitched out on me for a second. But here we are, filling in the gap there with a couple of extra pieces. And coming around to the canards up front, I'm doing something special with the settings here. So I'm going to tweak them down. I've got all the wing pieces down to mass 0.8, so I'm setting the canards for pitch only, but I'm also going to do something else. So you see, there we are. Okay, below roll, the angle of AOA setting, angle of attack. So if you set that to negative on a forward surface, what it's going to do is, as you're flying along, those surfaces are going to try and rest in a position parallel to the angle of attack. So if you've got the nose pitched up, those will pitch down a little bit, so they face the direction you travel instead of the direction your nose is in. And that can help a lot with stability, doing some high altitude things and some extreme aerobatics. But you'll see the effect of them more properly when we take it for a test flight. Okay, and getting the landing gear on as well. As you can see, as usual, just behind centre of mass, which is itself right on the back of the cargo bay, as it should be, and raised up a bit to give us a bit of height to avoid tail strike. But one nice thing with these little filling wings is you've got another trick available to you. So you've got a perfect little platform there at just the right height and, tucked away fairly unobtrusively, to stick another pair of wheels, and if you have a look at that angle there, that's just right. You can pull up hard onto that rear set of four wheels and you won't clip the engines. So you can land or take this one off with quite a bit of vigour. So, alright, here we got those Verna Checker there, which is just a nice little mod that just reminds you of things in case you forgot them. And let's have a look at the aero. So yeah, Mark 5 at high altitude, everything perfect smooth, green, green, green. If you have a look at the level flight stats up in top right though, you'll see the angle of attacks are often fairly extreme. This is a ship that doesn't have a lot of wing, so it does need a fair bit of speed to fly level. But yeah, all nice and stable. The yellow line down the bottom is the one you're looking at here. So long as that's angling down, it's good. As soon as it turns up, like it does at the end there, at about 22 degrees, then the plane starts to become unstable. But 22 degrees of angle of attack is plenty enough. That's quite a long way, and even past there, and it's only starting to become unstable, and it's got a lot of control authority that can control that for a lot of the time. The other lines on here, you'll see the red one is drag, the blue one is lift, the green one is lift divided by drag. Low drag is good, high lift is good, high L over D is good, and the yellow one, your coefficient of manoeuvrability, like I say, you want that angling down. But yeah, up to 20 degrees is pretty good. And it's also good that you'll notice here, all these are single lines, none of them are split. So it's not saying that it's a plane that doesn't stall easily. Like, I expect the canards will themselves stall very easily, but the plane overall can go to extreme angles of attack and keep flying. The main wings will keep lift. But yeah, so down low altitude, low speed, as you can see there, running through the runway speeds, it does need a bit of speed on the runway in order to take off, so you might want to be careful with it on a really short strip. Although even though it needs quite a high angle of attack to take off, again, it's got the ability, especially with those wheels on the tail, so you can slam it up hard, it has the ability to give itself a huge angle of attack straight off the line. Okay, you see there, 45 kilometers, Mark 1, angle of attack required for level flight 0 degrees. It's saying you can't do it. At that speed you will not fly level at that altitude. So up to Mark 2, down to 30 kilometers, still can't do it. 4, try it at 20k. Bang, there we go. And you can see the canards again on the front of the plane, how they've angled down to match the angle of attack, so they'll be holding themselves level on the wind while the plane is nose up. And how are we doing? So at this more reasonable altitude of 20k, yeah, we can fly at 3, we can fly at 2. Yeah, so we can climb up to about 20 kilometers really as steeply as we want pretty much. We don't need to build a lot of speed to fly there, but if we want to go higher than 20 kilometers, then we'll need to build some more speed, and you want to be doing better than Mark 1 even at 20. So what, even 15, what Mark 1 won't do for 15? This is a very streamlined, low drag, small winged plane. Something with bigger, broader wings like a cargo plane sort of thing can fly at these altitudes at much lower speeds. But yeah, okay, so at Mark 1 we can do 10 kilometers. But this plane should not have trouble getting faster than Mark 1. It's not going to be slow. So what's up next? Oh yeah, setting up the control surfaces. So these ones at the back, you've got a choice. You can either do half as elevators, half as ailerons, or you can do all or some of them as elevons, which is influencing pitch and roll, or you can, with the settings here, you can do them any mix of that you want. So you could do like the inner ones to be 100% pitch but only 50% on roll, and the outer ones to be 100% on roll but only 50% on pitch. That sort of thing. You just need to experiment and mess around to see what works best for you. Exactly what's best is going to depend on what sort of flying you're wanting to do with it. And what else have we got to do? I'm not going to set any air brakes or flaps or spoilers on this thing, because all the control surfaces are way off centre of mass, so they will have interesting effects if I power things up. Although I could stick some air brakes on the tail, but I'll have to keep busy control surfaces that I have other jobs for. What's up next? Oh, there we are. Make sure we got the steering unlocked on the front. And okay, because it's a decent sized plane and we've only got 2 sets of wheel brakes here, I'm going to set up some retro thrusters. So what we'll do is grab a pair of the little monoprop engines, which are massless, but even if they weren't, they wouldn't weigh much, and they're very small and radial, so you can put them onto the sides of things, which is very convenient. And yeah, then flip them around until they're pointing the right way, and tuck them all in there so they're nice and discreet, don't show up too much. Yeah, and yeah, so set up an action group to toggle those on or off. Make sure you've got a decent monoprop supply and kick those on, and they will substantially enhance your one-way braking. And you can also use them as de facto pseudo air brakes if you want to, although that's usually wasteful of your monoprop, so avoid unless it's an emergency. So I'll just set up the action groups here. So yeah, center engine for the first one. It's usually a good idea to kind of have a pattern to how you set up your action groups and keep it fairly consistent in between ships. It stops you getting confused. So I usually go like core engine, then flanking engines, then switch rapier mode, then toggle intakes. Then after that, I've got time to think about what else to do. What should we do for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc.? Okay, well, one of my other standards, though, coming from the other end, is Verners. If you're using Verners for vectored thrust maneuvering things, you need to be able to toggle them off, because they're going to mess with your RCS translation when you're trying to dock. You know, you don't want your Verners spinning you about the place while you're trying to gently nudge into a docking port on a space station, and going all over the ship and chasing them down and right-clicking each one is a complete pain. So it's good to have a little toggle there to flick them quickly. We use number 9 just under the Verners for the retro thrusters, and got a few spare in the middle. So what I can do is just set up all the utility stuff like the docking port and the cargo bay, and what's in the cargo bay, that sort of thing. Or yeah, solar panels as well. And if it's a Science Explorer sort of thing, vehicle, I usually have one action group set aside to trigger every science thing on it, plus a crew report. So then you can just go zooming through biomes and just hit one button to grab everything as you go through. So yeah, we've got the cargo bay doors, and let's go have a look what's in the cargo bay. I did build something, but I cut the building of this out of the vid because it's just a basic probe, and it wasn't that interesting to watch. But we'll set it so we can decouple it with an action group. That way I can pop it out while sitting in the cockpit watching it on the raster prop monitor screens. And yeah, we're nearly done. What else is there? Some fuel lines and possibly a bit more reinforcing. So see, those lateral tanks are actually connected on by the nacelles at the front. So that's why there's a fair bit of strutting around the back. So the weight of the engines and the wings is all being carried on those struts pretty much. But yeah, some fuel lines from the centre out and from the outside in. The problem here is that no matter what I do with fuel lines up at the back here, the first tank to drain is going to be the big tank that's up in front of the cargo bay, which would shift the weight of everything backwards, which in this plane wouldn't be that big a deal because it's actually got quite a big distance between centre of lift and centre of mass, but it would upset it a bit. So yeah, and most of my normal fuel hose routing tricks to make the back tanks drain first won't work unless I run a really long fuel hose past the cargo bay doors up to the front fuel tank, and I don't really want to do that. So, what can I do? Still thinking if there's some way to sort it out without a ridiculously long fuel hose. But no, we'll just sort out the back ones to be all kind of, one common tank. So at the moment the rapiers are going to drain from the front tank first, then the rear central tank, then from the lateral tanks. Whereas the central one is going to drain front tank, then lateral tanks, but the central turbojet's not going to drain more than a snippet of fuel anyway. But what I can do is, if I get a bit clever with my right click stuff, so that front tank, what I can do is select it and lock off the fuel flow from there, and if you only lock off half of the fuel flow, like just the oxidizer or just the liquid fuel, or both, you can control the rate at which you can have quite fine control over weight distribution in the plane just by doing that sort of thing. So yeah, that's what I tend to use on these long fuselage jobs if I'm not just dealing with it with good speed or tack fuel balancer instead. Or the newly announced fuel flow rules that are going to make all this fuel flow worries irrelevant. But yeah, as you can see, my ferrum stuff's good in most places, but there's a little bit of red there it's in the ore derivatives, but it's a roll issue, so I'm not roll writing enough. So solution for roll is dihedral, so I'm just going to angle out the tail fins a tiny bit, and there we go, sorted out my roll problem by just dihedral. It's kind of, think of the plane as sitting in a cradle that likes to rock itself back to upright. So putting that little bit of angle out on the big tall tail fins makes them work as an extreme dihedral wing once it starts to roll over a bit. Alright, so yeah, up at extreme altitude we get a tiny little bit of pitch up, but I'm not particularly worried about that. That's easy enough to control, and it's not that bad a thing because you kind of want to pitch up at that altitude anyway. It's better than having to fight to hold the nose up. And what else we got? That's not too bad. Yep, I could just shift. So if you do have pitch up problems, the way to deal with them usually is to move a bit of lift away from the front. So shift your canards back, that sort of thing, or pull your wings back, or add a bit more wing at the back, or pull a bit off the front. But not really necessary. So who we got to fly? So Bob and Danmon, that'll do. And okay, here we got Kerbside. So I have dozens of launch sites to choose from. So where should we go? North Pole Biodome. That sounds interesting. Where else is there? I'm looking at all of them here. I should pull it down to the little buttons at the top. You can select it to just runways or just helipads or just weird things, because there are boat launching sites in this as well, and jetties, and there's an aircraft carrier. It's quite cool. Tricky to land on though. So though, where shall we go? So flash lands, Lake, like Dermal, boom, boom, boom. Okay, a long runway on that one, because I think this one might need a bit of a fast takeoff, so we'll go there. So launch. Okay, we're off, but you will see the launch in the next video. This one's been long enough already, so see you around, folks. Cheers.